Alrighty. Welcome to the Beta Cooks podcast. This is the first part. My name's Rains, and I'm basically what you would call an actual chef. Chef. So I have been working in a kitchen professionally for a little under 5 years, right? So that for me, so I know quite a bit. I have a little bit of knowledge. I thought, there's not a lot of content out there specifically about working in the kitchen, the life of a chef, a life of a cook, a line cook. And I just thought I'd share my experience, knowledge, a little bit of everything, kind of, uh, to just kind of, you know, just kind of me communicating how my life kind of goes day to day. Um, this is kind of like a project I'm going to be doing on the side of sorts, right? Like, I just want to talk, chat, converse about everything, um, and just talk a little, like just tell you guys about what it means to be a chef. So I am from the Netherlands. I'm very Dutch, and from my experiences in the kitchen, I think I should probably actually, I should probably start with how I got into this. Right? I started out doing the most Indian thing ever. Going to computers, coding, computer science, and about a year in, I kind of had a epiphany. No, not really epiphany. More like a understanding that I didn't really vibe with the workload, right? And it's funny because like when you go to the kitchen, it's like why would you go to the kitchen for the workload? Like like you don't go and work in the kitchen for a lack of workload. You go into the kitchen because you like to do something active. I'm inherently a very lazy person, so that's just for me. It's just a very specific way of dealing with it. Like everyone has their own roots to the kitchen, to the whole working environment. In in my case, I started off in computer science. I moved on. I realized after a year that this wasn't really something I saw myself doing for the coming 5, 10, 15 years. So essentially what ended up happening was I kind of um moved along. I just decided I want to start looking to do something different. Something different with my life and see how my life is. And essentially, I was looking for basically I was looking for a study, like, and I found this culinary school post, and I just really decided, uh, I'd like to try because I had always liked cooking. Mostly, I like baking, right? That's what I like: baking cakes, cookies, and anything else that's unhealthy inherently. And from that, I found that I could do this. Started the course. Went applied to an internship at a restaurant that I still am at right now. And got in, and I have been working there for the past 4.5, almost 5 years. This year would be my fifth year. And in the time, I'd like to, like I want to start with removing some of the predispositions of what it means to be a chef, right? A chef, being a chef basically means that I cook, duh, right? Um, but the thing about being a cook professionally is you do a lot of it. You spend a lot of time on your feet. You are rarely sitting down, and the view from the outside of a cook is basically that you're working hard, you work weekends, which which is true. It's true for some people. But you have flexible hours. A lot more so, like, not hours. You have flexible days, kind of. Like, you can work, in my case specifically, you can work, I work 4 days a week, 4 full days, which is not like the regular 9 to 5. It's like 10 to 11. And I'm not talking an hour, I'm talking about like 11 hours, 12 hours, which seems like a lot, but because you're actively doing something different every 20 minutes, doesn't really mean much, right? It doesn't really have that big of a difference on your whole view of the work. It is still a lot of work, it's that is not something you can kind of avoid. So you like the surprising thing about me is that I am pretty lazy on my days off. I think I've always been a little lazy, but the thing about working in the kitchen is that I worry a lot less about stuff outside of work. Which is kind of the reason I started this. It's just me kind of having ideas. So in the kitchen, you might be wondering, like, what do I do in the kitchen, right? In the kitchen, I am what you call a chef de partie, which is a French term, which basically means that, so a partie is like a section. It's a section. It's a French word. I'm pretty sure it's a French word for. Let me check. So partie in French means part. So in our case, we call it a section, kind of. It's so in our kitchen we have, well, actually no, in general most kitchens have 3 to 4 sections, like major sections. You've got the warm, you've got the cold, yeah, you've got the dishwash, and then you've got dessert, and then you have the division of food, dishes, and whatnot based around that. And the thing about the whole what do you do in a kitchen? In a kitchen, you tend to do everything. You because you're one big team, you help each other to the best of your abilities, right? It just makes things easier on yourself, because life is in a kitchen is that you work on section 1, section 2, section 3, and it moves on. So I usually stand on the warm side. I can also do cold, but it doesn't happen very often. Usually when you are new into the kitchen, you start out in the cold side, because that is generally the place where speed is not exactly a necessity. Because the dishes are usually cold anyway, So if you spend a little longer on a dish, it doesn't matter much. But like it wouldn't matter if it was in the warm side, right? Because you would end up having to be very quick with how you do heating up products and whatnot. And so I started in the cold side my first year. It was my first kitchen job as well. Started in the cold side, and I moved on. Kind of. I learned to cut vegetables safely. The claw grip. That was the thing I had to hone. I had a week where I had a week where like when you see the chefs cutting, like their hands are curled up, and their knife is like a millimeter away from their fingers. Yeah, I had the same. I do the same way. And that is the most efficient way because a knife cuts, it doesn't chop. You say chop and cut interchangeably, but it's usually cut, so it's more like slicing behavior. But so anyway, the point is, I was cutting, and in a week's time, I cut about four, maybe five of my fingers. No, four different fingers. I had a cut on them. I lost like parts of my nail, like the top of your nail. And if you've ever had your nails getting pulled off or ripped or whatever, you know that hurts. There's a reason why the KGB agents and like torture people in like 1900s, which that use torture, they would pull nails off. There's a reason for that. It's not fun, right? And it bleeds like crazy. It's just and it's not a place where you're using your hands all the time, especially in the kitchen. More so in the kitchen, you're using your hands like 80% of the time, if not more. So you end up being in a situation that you have to use your hands, but like a small tap is enough to kind of totally destroy your entire thing. Like you'll have pain the entire time, and you start bleeding again. You feel like, oh, it stopped bleeding finally. Tap, like you graze something, and it start bleeding like it's like a fountain coming out. I almost fainted one time. And so the funny thing about working in a kitchen is that you work with the same people for so many hours. You spend like I think I spent more time in the last 4.5 years with my colleagues than I have spent with my actual family. Which is a downside of working in the kitchen. You work weekends, usually. Like majority of the weekends you're working, and so you don't see your family anyway. But when you're working, you also don't see your family in the night times. And when they are off, you are working. So you kind of just like don't really meet up with them that much. So I have a privilege of getting at least one of the 3 weekend days. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday is considered weekend. Thursday is kind of a weekend, not always, but Friday is usually my day off. That's when I play chess. I do my hobbies, watch F1 and stuff. And so that's my predominant day off. But there are a lot of chefs out there that work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then they have their weekend on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Majority of the world has this whole notion that if a restaurant is open 7 days a week, that the big chef is only there on the busy days. That's not necessarily the case, because cooks and chefs, they also have a life, right? We have a life of our own, so it's not like a straight up, you know, I'm a cook, you are always off on the weekends, so I work in the weekends. That's not how that works. So back to the whole sections and what I do in the kitchen. So I'm a chef de partie. So that means that uh, I'm responsible for a particular section. So in this case, any section that I'm on, I'm responsible for it. So if anything goes wrong, I have to solve the problems, and I am held accountable, which might seem like a really weird way of doing it, but it's basically it's like a very big hierarchy. So when when people talk about, oh, you're a chef, in the kitchen, a chef is actually the person who is responsible for something. So for the people on the outside, yeah, okay, a chef, you're responsible for the food, so that makes sense. But in the kitchen, so I have a chef. I consider myself a cook. But the person who I am responsible for considers me their chef. That's kind of how that whole hierarchy works. In most kitchens in the whole world, the lowest are kitchen helpers, and even then, let's not talk about it's not like a caste system, right? That you cannot like. We are very casual with people because remember, you work 13 to 14 hours a day with each other, and you work at least 50 hours a week, at the very least. If unless you're in a hotel business, then you're probably working a little less. It's not the same amount, but in the long run, right? In the long run, you're working quite a lot with each other, which basically means that you kind of become a very, very unique. You have a very unique view on it, because always there's like a doorway aspect of it, right? When you're on the outside, you see one thing, and when you're on the inside, you see another thing. Now, YouTube stories have always come out of, obviously, of the whole what do you call it? The whole oppressive system of the whole kitchen, and that is true. That is true. I've also heard stories. I have been lucky enough to be brought into an environment where I can kind of, like, to a certain extent, talk back to my chef, right? I feel myself to be privileged in that. But there are a lot of places, specifically in France, where the pressure that chefs take is much higher, so the respect they demand is a much higher, but also the level of food is also much higher. There's a reason why there are about 10 times as many restaurants with a Michelin star, as there are in some other parts of the country, in the world. One sec. So, anyway, so we start at the lowest point. We start off as, in the hierarchy of the kitchen, we start off as kitchen helpers and dishwashers. Basically the same. These are people that don't have. So, the kitchen helpers are people that are either studying or are part timers, or people that don't particularly have like a certification, right? They are basically people that actually are very inexperienced. They can have experience, obviously. They don't have to be inexperienced altogether. They can have some experience. This would mean that they kind of do all the jobs that are tedious, take time. it's a very specific environment then, right? Because you are, as a kitchen helper, you're just there to do, like, pardon my French, but do all the shit jobs, right? You are not specifically doing the very interesting jobs. They are very boring. They're very monotonous, and that does turn people off. That is something that I have. So kitchen helpers and students, in the most extreme cases, are classified almost the same. They're treated very similarly. I wasn't, luckily. And as a kitchen helper, you're not asked to prove anything, which is a very sad reality, I think. Like, why isn't that person doesn't have that person have to prove anything? Well, the main point is that they are just kind of in a situation that they want to earn money, and that's about it. Above them or alongside them are the dishwashers. Personally, dishwashers are the most undervalued part of the kitchen by far. So there's a saying: a restaurant will run without a chef. A restaurant will not run without a dishwasher. And that's very much true. Like, who is gonna wash your dishes? Right? A dishwasher can cook, enables a cook to be able to cook. That's basically what the job of a dishwasher is. So, if you are working in a kitchen and you're listening to this, thank you. Thank you for the support. But if you're not, value your dishwashers. And this doesn't mean that we don't have the actual mechanical electronic dishwashers. We do. We do have that. It's basically that we're in a situation that who washes things off that the dishwasher doesn't really get off? Like burnt stuff. I have mad respect for the people washing dishes and pans that don't fit into our dishwashing machine. So dishwashing machines are pretty big in restaurants. You've got whole room size dishwashing machines, so you could just put everything in one container and then you just walk that container inside. It's pretty crazy. That does happen very often. And the thing about the whole, the whole thing about the whole thing about food having to be very clean and everything, that is something that the dishwashers also help with. Like, I remember that, our dishwashers, they clean the floor for us. That's crazy. Why should that be their job, right? Like, why should that be? Because the whole restaurant industry is kind of understaffed, but that's a whole different matter. We'll talk about that some other time. But let's get back to the hierarchy stuff, right? The dishwashers, most important people in the whole, they are the most important part of the team. After them, you've got the cooks. These are basically your people that have worked long enough in kitchens or have a particular set of skills, or they are basically, they have a particular certification or whatever, right? This is basically what everyone can come in to the kitchen as. You do not need. So there's a common misconception about being a cook or a chef or whatever, is you need experience and you need papers. That is not true. Yes, you do need experience, but even then, it doesn't really matter. If you apply 8 out of 10 times, you will get the job. it's all about initiative and willingness, right? Gordon Ramsay on the Hot Ones show on YouTube, it's season 15, I think. Anyway, I think it was one of those seasons, one of his first appearances on that show. He said that he had to work with Guy Savoy, who is a prolific chef from France, amazing chef that had 3 stars for the longest time. And you had to. So Gordon Ramsay, one of the most famous and influential chefs out there at the moment, he said he had to bust his ass off to work 6 days a week. 6 days a week, which is incredible pressure. And if you didn't, then you had problems. That is basically called initiative and willingness. If you have those 2 things, you can get pretty far in the kitchen. In the whole kitchen, restaurant, hoteling business. Because experience keeps building. And that means that you get better and then you become more valuable to whoever accepts you. On the other side is that having papers does make you seem more reliable. The point being, and reliable in the sense that you are worth the work that we put into you. Because that is usually the first thing that we check on to decide if if we're gonna spend our energy, time, and whatnot to teach you, help you improve. Because if we have someone who applies for a job as a cook and doesn't actually really care other than the money, and because they didn't have any papers, we know that, this person could go one of 2 ways. Be very motivated to learn, or be someone who doesn't want to learn anyway, he just wants the money. Now, I get it, you're working, you want to get money, right? But why would you spend your time, energy on someone who's not willing to improve and still get money from you? Right? We want someone who is an asset and not a liability. The assets will be liabilities, obviously, but we don't want the liability not to just be a liability. We want them to be an asset as well. So it's a very specific way of doing things. And you might consider that to be a very, very rude way of viewing things, but there's certain things in the restaurants, in kitchens, in a life of a chef that they're just some things that they've happened for the past 50 years, 60, 70, 80 years, and they are probably not going to change anytime soon. I'm going to be brutally honest with you in here. On the other hand, the cooks that do have papers, diplomas, or whatever, they can also be in this category that they do not care other than the money. That's very, very often not the case, though. At least from my experiences. But it can happen, obviously. Now, back to the hierarchy of the kitchen, right? Above the cooks are actually a lot of other places. Then you've got the chef de parties. And in the chef de parties, you've got distinctions between demi, chef de partie, and so after this point, it kind of becomes all about positioning. So you've got chef de partie, chef de partie, which is also a maid. He's a person who is section head. So when So a section, they're responsible for their particular section, and that's it. That is basically what they're responsible for. And sometimes in some kitchens where they are very big team, a team of 50, 60 people, then you've got a demi chef de partie. So someone who is responsible when the chef de partie is not here. So for example, if I have someone underneath me who is demi chef de partie, that would mean that if when I am not there, that person is there, and that person is the one that's held responsible. Right? But when we are both there, I am responsible. That's how the whole thing works, and then above them you've got the sous chef, and even that you've got junior sous chef, who is basically a person who is being taught the reins to become a sous chef. A sous chef is the person who is second in command, right? So you've got the chef, and you've got the sous chef, which is the second chef. So when the chef is not there, the sous chef is the one who leads everything. And then the junior sous chef is someone who is working their way up. Now, in some big restaurant hotel chains, you've got an executive chef and an executive sous chef, and you've got a head chef. Now, the distinction is very vague. In some places, executive sous chef is above the chef, but under the head chef and under the executive chef. It's very different. It really depends on a lot of their own restaurants and how these companies divide their workload. So I have a chef, I have a sous chef, and I have a executive chef. And then there is basically the owners about that, right? Now, the life of timeline. If we were to pull up a timeline, right, of what does it mean to be a chef? Well, the life of a chef tends to start out as, oh, I'm interested in food. Let's start with that, right? I'm interested in food. Well, that person starts cooking at home, finds out, oh, there's a culinary institute somewhere in my way. Joins that institute, starts working, and keeps going, right? And just starts working. 2, 3, 4 years in, becomes a chef de partie. Just someone who is above a line cook, gets some responsibility, moves on to a different place, learns there from the same position, moves up to a junior sous chef. Now, let's keep in mind that a chef with a certificate, a cook with a certificate, will spend most of their life, professional life, as a cook. And then the second most they'll spend their life is as a chef de partie. Very few people have the motivation after that point to become chefs. Sous chefs is also an aspect of it. Not everyone becomes a sous chef, but many do. Get to lead a team, basically. Not everyone. There are also a lot of people out there that actually become owners. So I know someone it's my opinion, right? It's my opinion that most chefs will stop working. No, it's not even my opinion. It's very common for most chefs to stop working in the kitchen proper by their 15th or 20th year in the hotel restaurant industry. Now, this is not because they lose the passion for it or whatever. It's because the long hours are not good for you. Why? Because you're standing around a lot. Your back will have problems. So that's why you also see a lot of chefs are fat, to say the least. We eat all day, and we eat all day, and we just don't do anything else, right? We walk around. You would think, oh, that should probably get rid of all your fat. No, that's not really how it works, because the amount of fat in a menu is different from restaurant to restaurant, right? But you can get some people that don't gain weight whatsoever. And in these scenarios, it's pretty common that you basically don't have anything to. It's pretty common for there to be just no prior predispositions. They do say this, right? They do say that the job of a chef is to feed, but I think the job of a chef is to please. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Menu. It stars, who does it star again? It's the stars the actress from Queen's Gambit. What's she called? What is she called? Anya Taylor-Joy, right? So it stars her as the main character. It's a very good movie, and there he also talks about how there's a chef who kind of goes crazy, but the point is the movie is about a chef that loses passion for food. It's an R-rated movie, so if you are not above the age of 18, fair warning. But it's a very good movie. It's it sheds light on the pressure of being a chef. I mean, I wouldn't go to that extreme, obviously. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I mean by going to the extreme. But it is something that people, as chefs, do deal with, and as a chef, you need to be tough-skinned. The amount of jokes we make with each other, we pull each other's leg all the time. And it's a very common thing as a chef to just spend your time with these people and your days off and everything else. Everything up off of this whole situation, right? The most fun thing about working in the kitchen, right? Let me put that in there before I close off. The most fun thing working in the kitchen is that while you're working in this high pressure environment, trying to make sense of this whole environment around you. The point of this, the fun thing about it is that you still make time to make jokes, pull pranks on your colleagues. One prank that my sous chef very often does with me is so when we make staff food, right? We make staff food for everyone, the front of house and the kitchen. So we make food, and he lets me taste stuff, right? He lets me taste all the food before we serve it. So this man takes a spoon puts like 40 grams of salt on there. And then he puts this sauce that he's been cooking for the past hour on it. Now, I've not seen him do that. So I just see his spoon, and he's like, and my hands are full, so I'm like, put it in my mouth, like whatever. He puts it in my mouth. I taste it, and I just get a full spoonful of salt. Right? Like, what? Like, I'm just like, I could have, I could get some salt stones in my stomach now because of having a full spoonful of salt. Now, to get him back, I put soy sauce in his drink. So he had cola, so I think he had cola. No, he had a coffee, and I put soy sauce into his coffee. Which is not, if you've ever had soy sauce on its own, a spoonful of soy sauce is not exactly tasty. Right? Like, it's not exactly one of those things where you're just like, nice, I'm just gonna eat, like, this bucket full of soy sauce. Drink. So, so I did that, and we kind of kept going, and I think that's one of the more fun ones. One time I was irritated with my chef, and like I said, I can talk back to my chef, which is I'm very lucky to be in an environment that I can do that. So, if you're thinking of getting into the kitchen, don't do this to your chef, right? Until it's clear that you can make jokes with this person. But anyway, so I was kind of irritated with him. This was my executive chef. He still was in the kitchen at that time. It was my executive chef, and I was just irritated with him because he was doing some stuff, and I just didn't like it. And the point is, he always drinks tea. He's always in his can of tea. So he puts in his teacup. I see his cup in my section, and it's just in the way. So I'm just like, this man has irritated me enough today. I take a bit of salt, put it in. Just enough that he drinks the tea. He's like, there's salt in here. Throw it away. It was right in front of the salt place, so you might have thought, oh, salt fell inside, whatever. He put it somewhere else, again, in my section, so I'm just like, dude, you've just put new tea inside, I'm gonna put salt in there, right? Like, you're still putting it in my section to put salt in again. And by the fourth time, he was like, okay, who did this? And I could only laugh, and I was lucky that he was in a good mood that day, because I could have gone on very wrong as well. Because he really likes his tea, so that could have gone wrong very badly. I think that's about it for today. If you were here watching me live, I stream this podcast over on Twitch. Hopefully every Thursday. I'll keep everyone posted every week when the next one is. But over on Twitch, twitch.tv/GMRains. It'll be in the description. Or if you want to check it out after the fact and the video itself, it'll also be on the YouTube. YouTube is literally as it is up there. The Beta Cooks podcast. Let me know if you liked it. If you did, please leave that in the comments as well. And if you have any questions for me, please do put those in the comments as well. I'd really appreciate it. It means a lot to me to be able to communicate what my experiences are. Next week, maybe I'll talk about knives. What the whole fandom of knife is like. Like, what's so fun about knives that chefs have? Like I myself have very few knives, but I still have like 18. Oh no, it's not 18. Okay, so that's a bit much. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. What? 1, 2, 3, 4. 7 or 8 knives, and I had the very few knives. My sous chef, he has like, he basically carries a suitcase all around, basically, essentially, which is also pretty insane. Not gonna lie. Having that many knives also just seems crazy to me, because I think has some knives in that set that he just has used once or twice. Like, it's not even close. It's not even close. It's pretty funny though. I really do enjoy that whole dynamic of having so many knives. Maybe we'll talk about knives next week. Actually, it's piqued my interest again. We'll talk about some knives. If you have anyone that you want to get on to this podcast in the future, let me know. I will try my hardest to get someone on as a guest. Speaking on my own is kind of a difficult task, obviously, because there's no one to bounce your ideas off of. But it was fun. It was fun talking, just voicing stuff. Just communication. Communication was just fun. It was fun. Maybe next time we'll have some more people helping out, joining in. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. And leave in the comments if you want to know something specific. Talk about something specifically. Thanks a lot. Goodbye, and have a great rest of your day, night, evening, monsoon. I don't really know. Let's enjoy your days.